This happened last fall. I needed extra work to pay off my student loans, so when I found a job cleaning an abandoned amphitheater, I was excited. I had cleaned places before, but nothing like this. The amphitheater was nestled in the woods. Its stone seats were cracked and vines crept up the sides. I imagined all the performances that took place there. I wanted to know more about its past. On my first night, I arrived when the sun started to set. Shadows stretched across the stage as I swept away dust and debris. The silence felt heavy, but I told myself I'd get used to it. Then I heard whispers. At first, I thought it was just the wind, but the whispers grew louder. They started to sound familiar, like old lines from plays I'd once read. My heart raced as I tried to focus on my cleaning. I spotted shapes darting in the shadows, but they vanished when I turned around. I felt a chill creep up my spine. Laughter echoed softly, but it didn't sound like a joy. It felt taunting, almost mocking. Each night I returned to clean. The whispers got clearer, filling the air like a fog I couldn't see but could feel. I brushed the stage and peeked into the empty seats. My heart raced with every creak of the old structure. Was it just the wind, or did the amphitheater come alive with stories of its past? I began to doubt myself. Was I hearing spirits from long ago, or was it all in my head? I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. My breaths quickened as the shadows danced around me. I tried to brush the fear away, but it lingered like the dust. On the last night, I felt a strong pull to the stage. As I swept, the whispers grew into shouts, urging to be heard. I stood there frozen, my heart pounding. Suddenly, I saw shadows forming. They flickered close, then disappeared again. The laughter became hysterical, echoing in my ears. I turned quickly, but no one was there. The amphitheater felt alive, throbbing with energy. I could almost see a crowd in my mind, a part of a performance I never witnessed. My skin prickled with dread. I wanted to run, but I couldn't move. Then I felt it, a presence, cold and heavy, lingering beside me. My breath hitched in my throat. I turned my head slowly. I couldn't make out details in the dim light, only a shape that felt closer than it should have been. Then I heard a voice right next to my ear, whispering my name. I froze, my blood running cold. For a moment, my mind went silent. I knew I wasn't alone. I didn't get to finish my cleaning job. I left that amphitheater, and now I wonder what secrets still lay hidden beneath its stone. The next day, I couldn't shake the feeling of dread. I stayed in my apartment, pacing. What had I really experienced at the amphitheater? Was I imagining things? I tried to convince myself I was just exhausted from work. But then I remembered the voice, thick with an icy breath that clung to my skin. Eventually, I decided I had to return. I felt drawn back to that place. Maybe I could confront what I feared, or at least gather some answers. When I arrived at the amphitheater in the late afternoon, the sunlight hung low, casting everything in a golden hue. It felt different, almost inviting, but I knew better. I stepped inside, gripping my broom tightly. The whispers were gone, replaced by an eerie silence. I wandered down the cracked stone path toward the stage. My footsteps echoed in the stillness, reminding me that I was alone. But I wasn't alone, was I? I forced myself to begin cleaning again, sweeping away the layers of dust. The air felt heavy, like I was being watched from the shadows. I hesitated, scanning the seats, as if expecting someone to emerge from the darkness. Nothing. Just as I was starting to convince myself that it was all in my head, I heard a faint sound. It was soft at first, like a rustle from behind the stage. I paused, my heart raced, and I took a cautious step toward the sound. As I rounded the corner, I was met with an old trunk sitting against the stone wall. It was worn and weathered, but something about it called to me. I knelt beside it, brushing away dirt and leaves. The latch was rusty, but it budged when I pulled on it. The trunk creaked open, revealing a collection of aged scripts, their edges frayed and yellowed with time. I could hardly breathe as I picked one up. The title read, "Whispers of the Forgotten." I flipped through the pages and felt a chill race down my spine. The words were familiar, echoing the lines I had heard before. The laughter, the whispers, they weren't just in my imagination. This trunk held the remnants of the past, a connection to the voices in my head. I couldn't shake the sense of urgency. As I hurried to the last script, I found a note tucked within its pages. It was written in an elegant hand, but the words struck me hard. To bring light to the dark, the voice must be set free. Before I could process it, I heard the whispers again, louder this time. They swirled around me, merging into a chorus of desperate cries. Cold air brushed against my neck, and I knew I wasn't alone. I felt the heaviness return, pressing down on my chest. I slammed the trunk shut, panic rising. Suddenly, the lights flickered, and everything darkened. I spun around, searching for the source of the interference. That's when I noticed the shadows racing towards me, their shapes twisting and morphing. I backed away, trying to catch my breath. I had to escape, but the path out felt blocked. A deep laughter echoed through the amphitheater, and my heart pounded. I had unearthed something that wanted to keep me there. Then I heard the whispers again, clearer than before. "Set us free," they urged. I realized I had stumbled onto something much deeper, something sinister. Suddenly, everything went silent, and I was met with an ominous stillness. My hand trembled as I reached for the trunk again. I had to understand. I didn't know what was waiting for me, but I felt like I was missing a vital part of the story, and I had no choice but to find out what it was. I hesitated for a moment, the trunk looming before me like a storm cloud. I wasn't sure if opening it again would summon more whispers, or worse. But curiosity drove me. I needed answers. I took a deep breath and lifted the lid slowly. The scripts were the same as before, but something else caught my eye. A small, ornate box lay hidden beneath the papers. It was a deep mahogany color, etched with symbols I didn't recognize. My hands shook as I reached for it, the whispers growing clamorous once more. "Set us free," they echoed through the amphitheater, oppressive and urgent. The moment my fingers brushed the box, it felt warm, as if it had a pulse. I glanced around, expecting to see something, or someone, emerging from the shadows. The nervous pit in my stomach tightened further. Still, I couldn't stop now. With trembling hands, I unlatched the box. Inside lay a delicate silver necklace, its pendant shaped like a broken key. As I lifted it from its velvet cushion, the air grew colder, making me shiver. I could feel the tension in the room, like a coiled spring ready to snap. I noticed a faint inscription on the back of the pendant. "Unlock the past, heal the wounds." It sent a chill down my spine. What past? What wounds? The whispers intensified, rising to a cacophony. I felt drawn to the necklace, but hindered by doubt. Did putting it on mean I would be complicit in whatever darkness lingered here? My heart raced, caught between fear and curiosity. I took a step back, wanting to flee, but I could feel the shadows closing in again, the air thick with desperation. And then, in a flash, everything dimmed. The sunlight that had once flooded the stage was gone. "Help us," a voice pleaded softly, breaking through the chaos. It was different from the others, sadder, more human. But with it came a pulse of energy that pushed me. Something urged me to wear the necklace. With no further delay, I clasped the necklace around my neck. As soon as the cool metal touched my skin, Everything changed. The whispers grew louder, swirling around me, threatening to overwhelm my senses. I stumbled back against the trunk, gasping for breath. Then, a heavy silence descended. Shadows pulled back, revealing a figure at the edge of the moonlight. My heart raced. It wasn't just the darkness anymore. It had taken form. A woman, her face pale and sorrowful, stood watching me. "Why have you disturbed the past?" she asked, her voice echoing as if it came from far away, yet still right beside me. I opened my mouth to speak, but no words came. The necklace pulsed against my chest, and her expression softened. "You have the key," she said, gesturing to the pendant, "but the choice is yours." I was frozen in place, a million questions flooding my mind. I thought I had come looking for answers, but now I felt more lost than ever. What did this mean? What choice was I supposed to make? Then I felt a tug at the necklace, a tightening sensation around my neck. The woman's eyes widened, and for a split second I thought I heard the echoes of laughter, followed by anguished cries. It was time for me to decide. The shadows loomed larger, and I realized I had to confront whatever lay behind those whispers, or risk being trapped forever. The darkness pulsed, hungry for my response, and just like that, I knew I was in way over my head. I stared at the woman, her expression caught between sadness and urgency. The whispers swirled again, almost frantically, as if they could sense our tension. I could feel their need pressing against me, a weight I couldn't ignore. "What do you want from me?" I finally managed to croak out. Her gaze held mine, and for a moment I thought I saw a flicker of hope in her eyes. "You can help us," she said, her voice softer now. "Your presence here is an invitation to bring the truth to light. But know this, every choice comes with a price." "Help you with what?" I asked, my voice wavering. The longer I stood there, the more terrified I felt. What truth? What would I have to sacrifice? Just then, behind her, shadows shifted like figures moving in the dark. It sent a chill through me, and I instinctively took a step back. The woman's eyes darted to the shadows, and I could see her fear mirrored in my own. "Do you feel it?" she asked urgently. "The anger, the pain. It's all intertwined with my story. If you walk away now, everything will remain buried. But if you choose to stay, you might uncover the truth, and it might set us free." Desperation gripped me. I had come seeking answers, but never imagined I'd be drawn into something so personal. "What happened to you?" I whispered, feeling more afraid of the responses than the silence. A tear slipped down her cheek, and she took a deep breath. "Long ago, a tragedy unfolded in this amphitheater. Lives were lost, dreams shattered. The echoes of that night still linger." She paused, her voice trembling. "I was part of it, a victim, caught in a web of betrayal. I can't," I stammered, the weight of her words pressing heavily on me. I glanced away, trying to catch my breath. In that moment of distraction, I noticed something moving among the shadows. A figure, barely discernible, emerged into the faint light. My heart lurched as I tried to decipher the outline. "Stay close," the woman warned, her voice barely above a whisper. "It wants to scare you away." Panic seized me. I couldn't see who or what it was, but I felt its presence wrapping around me like a vice. I tightened my grip on the necklace. What if you're wrong? What if digging into this only puts me in more danger? She reached out, her hand trembling. "The danger is already here. You've awakened it." The figure stepped closer, and the air grew thick with dread. I could finally see the shape, an outline of a man, shadowy and distorted, with eyes like burning coals. My breath quickened. "Face it," the woman urged. "This is your chance." The whispers crescendoed, drowning out all reason. Everything in me screamed to run, but I couldn't move. I had to choose, confront the truth or let dread consume me. And as I stood there, caught in that moment, the darkness lunged for me. "You're not leaving!" it roared, its voice 1,000 echoes in one. I staggered back, panic surging through me. I had stumbled into something incomprehensible, and now it felt like a tidal wave was crashing down on me. Suddenly, a memory flashed. Images of the amphitheater bathed in flickering candlelight, and laughter woven into the fabric of the night. I realized then that this place held stories, stories I might unravel, but at what cost? I fought against the panic creeping into my thoughts. Turning towards the woman, I asked, "How do I end this?" The woman's eyes widened as she took a small step toward me, urgency intertwining with fear. "You must listen to the echoes," she insisted. "They will tell you the truth." I shook my head, unwilling to look at the shadows that continued to pulse around us. But what if it's dangerous? What if it's wrong? Her gaze softened, and she lowered her voice. "The only wrong choice is ignoring them. You must face what happened here." Before I could respond, the man-shaped figure surged forward, his cold gaze locking onto mine. It was as if he were pulling my very thoughts from my head, demanding answers from my soul. I felt a rush of cold air, and for a moment I couldn't breathe. "Stay back!" I shouted, heart pounding. "Don't let fear guide you," the woman urged, her voice strong despite her trembling hands. "The truth holds power. You just have to unlock it." My fear battled against my curiosity, and I leaned into the pull of the specter instead of shying away. "What do you want?" I called, my voice cracking but trying to hold firm. The figure hesitated. "It's shadowy form, flickering like the light from a dying flame." Then it spoke, a voice like peeling paint. "Revenge," it rasped, echoing in layers, like the whispers I had heard since entering this cursed amphitheater. "You must uncover what was buried in the ashes of despair." "Revenge for what?" I pressed, desperate for clarity. The woman stepped closer, her eyes darting between the figure and me. "For the betrayal, for the lives lost, for the forgotten," she explained. "But this is not a path you walk alone." The darkness stirred, a swirling tempest of anger and sorrow. "Remember," the figure growled, "you are bound to this place now. The past will not let you go until it is free." The weight of those words settled like lead in my stomach. All my instincts screamed at me to flee, yet a strange pull urged me to dig deeper, to uncover the hidden narrative of this amphitheater. I could sense the urgent whispers reaching out, pooling in my mind, lives intertwined, shattered dreams still crying out for resolution. "What do I need to do?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper amidst the chaos. "Listen and search," the woman encouraged. "What happened here is locked in memories. You have to bring them to light." It felt overwhelming, the magnitude of her statement gnashing against my reason. "And if I fail?" She pressed her palm to her heart, eyes glistening with unshed tears. "If you fail, you could lose not just the truth, but your chance at freedom." In that moment, I knew I was at a crossroads. I glanced back at the figure, at the anguish etched into its form. Suddenly, flashes of images crossed my mind. Crowds, music, joy.
then pain, betrayal, darkness. Then, "Let's begin," I said, the words almost a promise to myself. A flicker of determination surged through me, overshadowing the fear that had paralyzed me moments before. But as I exhaled, ready to explore the truth, the shadows inched closer, the air thick with an unseen tension. That's when I saw it, a glimmer of light just beyond the figure, flickering like a candle in the dark. What if it held the key? I moved forward, driven by a strange mix of dread and curiosity, knowing I was no longer just a visitor. I was now part of this haunted story. As I stepped toward the light, the shadows shrank back, as if repelled by the brightness. Each step felt like a dare, testing my resolve. The woman stayed close, her presence a reassuring anchor amidst the chaos. "Keep going," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the rustling echoes. The flicker grew stronger, revealing more details. A tapestry of shimmering colors danced before my eyes, weaving in and out like memories begging to be freed. I reached out, my fingers grazing the cold surface of something transparent. "What is this?" I asked, my breath catching. "It's a veil," the woman replied, "between the past and the present."
Find a way through. The answers will be on the other side. My heart raced. A veil? I had heard whispers about dimensions and eternal cycles, but this felt different. I focused on the light, willing it to guide me. How do I break it? "Remember," she urged again, "listen to the echoes." Just then, the specter shifted, its form becoming more defined, more anxious, as if sensing my determination. "You fear the truth, but it is here," it hissed, the air around us shifting as the temperature dropped. "What lies behind this veil will reveal the betrayal." I took a deep breath, pushing past my uncertainty. "Show me!" The moment I shouted the words, the barrier responded. The light surged, wrapping around me like a warm embrace before pulling me through. I stumbled, disoriented by the sudden shift. Colors swirled around me, shadows dancing in forms I couldn't quite recognize. Then it stabilized. I found myself standing in what seemed like the amphitheater from another time, bright and lively. The seats were full of people, laughter and music filling the air. I could almost feel the joy as it washed over me. But the happiness was short-lived. I noticed a figure, a young woman on stage, radiant and passionate, her voice rising above the din. But among the crowd, another presence lurked, cloaked in darkness. I squinted, trying to catch a glimpse of this shadow. It felt wrong, menacing. Then, without warning, the scene shifted. The crowd erupted into chaos. The woman fell, her voice silenced. My heart raced as confusion set in. What had just happened? I wanted to reach out, to comfort her, to change the outcome, but I was a mere spectator. "Why?" I called out, desperate for answers. What did this betrayal, the chilling voice of the specter echoed around me. This is why revenge was sought. The vision faded, pulling me back into the cold reality of the amphitheater I had entered. I stumbled, heart racing, panic threatening to swallow me whole. What just happened? The woman's hand gripped my shoulder. "You saw, you felt. Now you must ask the right questions." Before I could digest her words, the shadows thickened again, swirling, their whispers rising in pitch like a storm gathering strength. I realized I had uncovered something crucial, but I had no idea what to do with it. Then, from the corner of my eye, I spotted a doorway, half open, beckoning me with an eerie glow. "Wait!" I shouted, instinctively pulling back from the door that promised further discoveries. "What if it leads to danger?" "Or truth," she replied urgently. "You have to choose." I hesitated, the shadows closing in once more. The echoes of the past began to rise again, and I knew time was running out. What lay behind that door could answer so many questions, or lead me deeper into the darkness I was trying to escape. Without another moment of thought, I surged forward toward the door, ready to confront whatever awaited me. As I pushed the door open, a wave of stale air rushed out, wrapping around me like a cold, damp blanket. I stepped inside, my heart pounding in my chest. The glow from behind me faded away, plunging the room into a twilight haze. Shadows flickered on the walls, twisting and turning like shadows of forgotten stories. I turned slowly, my breath hitching at the sight before me. The room was cluttered with remnants of the past, broken chairs, dusty instruments, and sheets of crumpled music. But what drew my attention most was a pedestal at the room's center. On it lay an ornate book, its cover embossed with strange symbols. "What's that?" I murmured, feeling an odd pull toward it. "The answers you seek," the woman replied, appearing beside me. "But be cautious, not all truth is liberating." I took a step closer, curiosity battling against the unease gnawing at my insides. As I reached for the book, the room seemed to hold its breath. My fingers brushed the cover, and a shiver coursed through me. I lifted it, feeling its weight, both literal and metaphorical. Suddenly, the shadows coalesced into forms, circling the pedestal. The air thickened, and the whispers that had haunted me before grew louder, a chaotic chorus of voices overlapping each other. "Don't open it!" one voice cried, its tone frantic. "It's the key," another insisted, soothing yet foreboding. I hesitated, glancing at the woman. Her expression was unreadable. "What do I do?" I asked, trying to find grounding in her gaze. "Trust yourself," she said simply, "but be prepared to face what you learn." With a deep breath, I opened the book. The pages were filled with uneven handwriting and sketches that looked more like fever dreams than coherent thoughts. As I scanned the text, chills rippled down my spine. Words jumped out at me: betrayal, vengeance, shadows rising again. This was a record of events from long ago, perhaps connected to the vision I'd seen in the amphitheater. And then I found it, a drawing of the same woman I'd seen on stage, surrounded by figures cloaked in darkness. Beside it, someone had scrawled a name: Sophie. I blinked, the name resonating deeply, but I couldn't quite place why. Before I could absorb more, the atmosphere shifted. The darkness coiled tighter around me, and the whispers erupted into a cacophony, roaring in anguish. "Don't open it!" one voice cried, its tone frantic. "It's the key," another insisted, soothing yet foreboding. I hesitated, glancing at the woman. Her expression was unreadable. "What do I do?" I asked, trying to find grounding in her gaze. "Trust yourself," she said simply, "but be prepared to face what you learn." With a deep breath, I opened the book. The pages were filled with uneven handwriting and sketches that looked more like fever dreams than coherent thoughts. As I scanned the text, chills rippled down my spine. Words jumped out at me: betrayal, vengeance, shadows rising again. This was a record of events from long ago, perhaps connected to the vision I'd seen in the amphitheater. And then I found it, a drawing of the same woman I'd seen on stage, surrounded by figures cloaked in darkness. Beside it, someone had scrawled a name: Sophie. I blinked, the name resonating deeply, but I couldn't quite place why. Before I could absorb more, the atmosphere shifted. The darkness coiled tighter around me, and the whispers erupted into a cacophony, roaring in anguish. "You shouldn't have come! You'll draw their attention!" I slammed the book shut, heart racing. The shadows lunged toward me, swirling in a frenzy. I felt paralyzed, trapped by the burgeoning threat. "What do I do?" I shouted, words barely rising above the turmoil. The woman grabbed my arm tightly. "We have to leave, now!" Just as we turned to escape, I caught sight of a shadow within the shadows, a dark figure emerging nearer. Its eyes glowed with a piercing light that sent ice through my veins. Panic surged through me. I couldn't leave yet. I still had questions. But
the urgency was insistent. I needed to move to survive. With one last glance at the book, I followed her as we raced back toward the door. The figure moved faster, an unmistakable threat closing in. Then, everything went dark. When the darkness swirled away, I found myself standing outside under a gloomy sky. The chill of the evening air hit me, making my skin prickle. I gasped, trying to catch my breath, the fear still buzzing in my mind. "What just happened?" I asked, struggling to wrap my head around the chaos. The woman stood beside me, her brow furrowed. "I didn't think they would follow you out," she said, glancing back toward the door we had just escaped. "We need to find somewhere safe." "Who were they?" I replied, my voice shaky. "What was that place?" She shook her head, urgency flushing her features. "There's no time. They're drawn to you now." I felt a chill run through me at her words, like ice creeping into my bones. "What do you mean? They're drawn to me. I didn't ask for any of this." "Neither did I," she replied tersely. "But we can't dwell on that. We need to cover ground before they sense us again." Fear mixed with confusion made my stomach churn. I glanced back at the amphitheater's entrance, swallowed by shadows. "But what about the book? I need to know what it said." Her face softened just slightly. "We will return for it, but right now, focus on getting to safety." With that, she turned and began to walk quickly away from the building. I hesitated, torn between the nagging urge to uncover the truth and the instinct to survive. I forced myself to follow her, my feet moving faster than my racing thoughts. As we moved through the overgrown pathways, the sound of rustling leaves and distant cawing birds surrounded us. I tried to absorb my surroundings, but I couldn't shake the feeling of dread sitting heavy in my chest. "We're almost there," she said, not looking back. A sudden rustling came from the thicket beside us. I froze, straining to listen. It felt like the woods themselves were holding their breath. "Did you hear that?" I asked, my voice dropping to a whisper. She paused and turned. "Don't panic, keep moving." But my heart pounded louder. I could feel something, or someone, watching us. The whispers were back, flowing through the air, creeping back into my mind. It's coming, they hissed, growing more insistent. I turned my head, searching the shadows among the trees. "What is it?" Before she could answer, the figure emerged again, standing tall and menacing, its eyes glinting with that same icy light. It was closer now, more defined, as if feeding off my fear. "Run!" she shouted, pulling me forward as the figure lunged. We sprinted down the path, heart pounding wildly, a primal fight or flight instilled in both of us. A sick realization gained traction in my mind. Whatever that thing was, it wasn't going to give up. Just then, I stumbled over a protruding root and fell hard to the ground. Pain shot through my knee, but I pushed myself up, desperate not to lose her. I spotted her ahead, silhouetted against the growing darkness. "Wait!" I yelled. "I can't keep up." In an instant, she turned back. "You have to keep moving. Don't look back. Trust me." But trust felt like a distant concept. I caught my breath and forced myself to run, knowing that whatever I faced ahead couldn't be worse than the monster chasing after us. Then, everything went dark again. Chapter 2. I blinked, disoriented, as light seeped back into my vision. My surroundings felt different, quieter. I was on the ground, the cool earth pressed against my skin. I pushed myself up and looked around. The woman was gone, her presence replaced by an unsettling stillness. "Hello?" I called, my voice trembling. The eerie silence echoed back at me, amplifying the emptiness. I scanned for any sign of her, but the path I had been running down now stretched into an unknown expanse. The impending dread curled tightly in my stomach. I stood slowly, brushing dirt off my clothes. A rustle caught my attention again, but this time it came from deeper in the woods rather than the shadows.
I took a step forward, hesitant, my heart racing anew. "Where are you?" I whispered, but my voice fell flat against the trees. Suddenly, I heard a faint humming, like a distant lullaby threading through the air. I followed the sound, shivering at how it seemed to wrap around me, luring me in. The path twisted, leading me further away from where I last stood with the woman. With every step, the melody became clearer, flourishing in the gloom. I felt torn. My instincts screamed to turn back, but my feet moved toward it, curiosity peaking. I rounded a bend, and then it stopped. Silence fell like a heavy blanket, smothering the air. "Hello?" I repeated, louder this time, as if my voice could pull the sound back. The stillness mocked me, and a chill raced down my spine. Then I saw something, the remnants of a small clearing. The overgrowth had cleared just enough for me to see a broken stone pedestal covered in moss and vines. My heart skipped as I approached it. Symbols were carved along its surface, twisting and curling into shapes I couldn't recognize. "Maybe she's close by," I thought, desperate. I reached out to touch the cold stone, my fingers brushing over the etchings. As I did, a low hum returned, vibrating through the air. The melody wrapped around me like a whispered promise. But then, everything shifted. The whispers grew more audible, echoing in my mind. They sounded familiar, the same whispers that had haunted me before. Panic surged. I yanked my hand away, but the sound remained, an insistent chant growing in intensity. "Get out! Get out!"
"Go out!" the voices shouted, blending into one another, pushing against my thoughts. I stumbled back, heart racing. In that moment, something shifted among the trees. A shadow flickered, and I turned, breath hitching. Something was watching again. "Go away!" I shouted at the darkness. I spun around, adrenaline pumping, desperate to retreat, but there was only a cold grip of silence. The weight of the whispers closing in around me felt suffocating. Then I noticed something on the ground, a soft glow illuminating the dirt beneath my feet. I bent down. There were small crystals scattered around the pedestal, pulsing gently like they were alive. That's when I saw it. A larger crystal nestled among the smaller ones, radiating a light that seemed to pull at my very core. I reached for it instinctively, but a gust of wind swept through the clearing. It sent leaves swirling and knocked me off balance. I gasped as a figure emerged from the dark, and I stumbled backward, the warmth of the glow fading instantly. "Hey!" I screamed, but the figure stepped closer, the icy light reflecting in its eyes. It wasn't just watching anymore, it was moving. I had to run, but the weight of the whispers clung to me fiercely. Whatever was behind me wasn't going to let me escape this time. I sprinted into the wild tangles of the woods, chaos erupting in my mind as I fought to stay ahead of the cold presence that seemed to breathe down my neck. Every branch and root felt like a trap waiting to snag me. The air thickened, the shadows seemed to reach out, wanting to pull me back to the clearing, but I couldn't stop. I couldn't look back. The whispers echoed louder, swirling like a storm in my mind, frantic, desperate, and urgent, growing into frantic screams. "You're not alone! Remember the pedestal! Remember the truth!" they cried. Each jagged thought tore through me, almost drowning out the rhythm of my racing heartbeat. Suddenly, I broke free into a small opening. It felt like a moment of sanctuary. I paused, hands on my knees, gasping for breath. The woods were eerily silent now, as if they too were holding their breath. I took a moment to gather myself, looking back to see if the oppressive shadows followed. And then I saw her. The woman emerged from the trees on the edge of the clearing, her expression unreadable but intent. "You shouldn't have gotten separated," she said firmly, glancing around as if sensing unseen dangers. "What did you find?" "Just a pedestal and crystals," I replied. "But there was something else, a presence. It was malevolent." "Good," she said curtly. "It means you're close. You're tapping into old cowers. We must hurry and decipher what you saw.
This isn't just a haunting, it's a chain of events that binds spirits to this amphitheater. She turned, leading me back through the thicket, her pace urgent. We traversed paths I had not seen, winding deeper into the woods. As we hurried along, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched, even with her by my side. Finally, we reached a makeshift camp, a few overturned crates with piles of papers strewn about. Flickering candles cast eerie shadows against the trees. Here, I felt a little more safe, but I could sense the tension lingering in the air. "Now, tell me exactly what you saw," she insisted, guiding me to sit on one of the crates. "Every detail matters right now." I recounted the events, the voices echoing, the crystal, the pull I felt toward that mysterious light. When I mentioned the name I had seen, Sophie, something flickered in her eyes. "Sophie?" "Yes, a name inscribed," I said, confusion clouding my memory of everything swirling together. "What does it mean?" She swallowed hard. Sophie was once a performer here, a skilled actress whose passion lit up the stage. When tragedy struck during one of her performances, chaos unraveled, and a dark force ensnared her soul and the souls of many others here. "Why?" I asked, grappling with the layers of this history. "Because betrayal breeds anger," she said, her voice wavering slightly. "Those ties made the amphitheater a conduit where spirits linger in pain. But no one thought to confront the truth. They faded away, locked in shadows." Her words began to resonate. A revelation felt swirling. "The whispers are their calls for help." "Yes," she replied. "And now that you've uncovered their connection, you hold a piece of it. The veil you passed through opened things that had long been buried." A flash of realization coursed through me. If I had that key, could I not also help them? Help Sophie? But accompanying that thought was a profound fear of not knowing what price I would have to pay. "So, how do we fix this? How do we set them free?" I asked, heart racing and uncertainty creeping back in. She stepped closer, her eyes locking onto mine with urgency. "We must face the darker aspect, the one bound to Sophie. It holds the rage, the pain, the betrayal, whatever has kept her and others trapped. Only by confronting it can you help free them all." And just like that, we were back to facing the monster. I swallowed hard, feeling the familiar tug of fear in my gut. What if I'm not strong enough? "You don't have to be alone," she reminded me, her voice steady. "We will share the burden. When we face the truth, strength finds a way to emerge." I nodded, though uncertainty coiled tightly in my chest. The flickering candles dimmed again, shadows dancing in wild motions, as if the darkness sensed its impending confrontation. There was no turning back. With a determination ignited between us, we stood. "Lead the way," I said, compelled by frantic whispers in my own heart that urged me forward. I hadn't encountered the darkness fully yet, but I felt it looming with an intoxicating hunger. We stepped together back into the darkness. Woods, ready to face whatever awaited us, knowing unresolved questions still hung thick in the air. In this moment, light and dark intertwined, leaving new mysteries in their wake. But I had a purpose, and I had a companion. In the depths of uncertainty, I realized ultimately, even if I didn't know what lay ahead, I had to discover whether the stories buried with the amphitheater could finally rise to the surface or remain tangled in shadows forever.